Greetings, fellow crafters. It's your Hello Queen speaking, and we're going to do a WIP and Chat. For those of you who are unaware, WIP means work in progress. So dig out whatever crafting project you're working on, be that diamond painting, cross-stitching, knitting, wet crocheting, whatever it is you're working on. I'm working on a tombstone, it's all good. And sit along with me, we're going to chat, we're going to learn a little bit more about me with this Get to Know Me tag, and we're going to have some fun together. Okay, so the WIP that I'm going to work on, I've got a few, but the WIP I'm going to work on is I Am from Diamond Art Club. I'm going to throw the full image, actually, I can throw the full image up right here. This is the sticker that Diamond Art Club sends you, along with the sticker for the stuff. I did put it on the outside of my stuff. As you can tell, I'm not very far into it. This was 2 rows of squares that I've gotten done, and I'm working along here. So I'm going to start a fresh square for this. I'm going to zoom in so you can see a little better what I'm doing. Okay. So in order to get at the next square, I'm going to peel back this on the sticky. Should have undid the zippers on this before. And sticking to the sticky. Okay. Take out my hand is really sticking to the sticky. Okay. Take out the ridiculously oversized scissors. And I'm literally just going to cut down that. I'm going to replace all of this. I'm just going to work in this section. I do not own any pepper minders, so all I am doing, and you can't quite see this, so I'm going to move it up a bit, is just peeling back this little flappy here and taking a piece of the tape and taping it down. It's not fancy, but it works. Okay. So, I'm going to use the clear tray that comes with the Diamond Art Club because my kids have wandered off the other one. I'm going to use a pink pen with a 6-placer because the 6-placer doesn't work so well on my other thing. And my new pen from Diamond Pens. Now I love these pens, however, the hole in this end for the multi-placer is a little over large. And I need to I'm going to try getting a hold of some blue tack. I thought I had some around here and I can't find it. Not unusual for my house. See if I can get some blue tack and see if I can get some to stick in there and see if that helps because it's a little wobbly. It's usable, but it's wobbly. That's from Diamond Pens. I will link where I got that in the description. There's a video. There's 2 videos. There's one where I did this one, and then there was one where I explained more about Diamond Pens when I did my first one, which my oldest has stolen. This is the Diamond Dots containers. I think I got this with Snow Sisters. The bigger kits have these. The smaller kits just have little trays. Doesn't have to be a very big kit at all, just not one of the little tiny sampler ones. But that's actually Diamond Art Club wax that's in there. I pressed one of the hearts in there because I like that little container. And I have a 9-placer somewhere. I don't know where it is. We're just going to ignore it. Okay. So, I put it on the sticky. Why did I do that? So, today is Sunday. It is the, oh good God, the 28th? Yeah, I'm working tomorrow's the 29th, 30th, and then the 1st is Canada Day, which I will have off. Yay! It's been an interesting week. because it's a big weekend that's leading into a holiday, which means many cakes. So I am going to do what I normally do, which is I just look to see what color jumps out at me in this area here. And I'm seeing this little Tetris block here. So I'm going to go over into my storage. Tetris block is 3371, sort of a very, very dark brown, I think. Yeah, brown. There are no 310s in this painting, no black, but there's a lot of this brown, and there's a lot of 823 and 979 and 939 and that sort of thing. Okay. I see a fair bit in there. One second. Sorry about that. That was my pumpkin alarm, so I have to take my meds. I dropped my drink. I'm back again. So yeah, I've been making a very large number of red and white cakes. And we've been having some serious issues with our distribution center. Apparently, more than a week ago, I want to say like a week and a half ago, there was some COVID cases. I don't know how many, whether it was one or more than one.
Hey, sleeping bedtime.
Thank you. So they had to close down the distribution center, which supplies a lot of Walmarts. Basically, the products are brought to the distribution center, and then the distribution center takes our orders and puts them out to us. So they had to close down the distribution center and sanitize everything. And obviously some people are off sick with COVID. Some people are in quarantine because they were around this person or persons who had COVID. And then there's a segment of the population who works there who are like, I don't want to be here if there's a threat of COVID. So there are some people who are taking a voluntary leave of absence. So they have had no staff. They were not only closed for a few days because they had to clean the distribution center, but they had no staff now. So our system has been telling us, all of your stuff is coming tomorrow, every day for the last week or more. It's getting on to 2 weeks now, and it looks like the bakery's been robbed. The dairy section looks completely desolate. It's a bad scene. And I'm out of chocolate rounds. We're getting low on cupcakes. It's an interesting time. Take my pills. Stay hydrated, folks. Okay. So, where were we? Okay, so we're on 31, which is what was the phone app that you used most. 32 is, would you rather cook or order in? About 85% of the time the answer is order in. I don't have the energy. The depression's been really bad, and my kids are the pickiest eaters on the face of the earth. So, I mean, there's only so much you can live on Kraft Dinner and chicken nuggets. And my kids are really picky, and they don't want to eat anything that's even the slightest bit out of their comfort zone. So it makes cooking really frustrating. And I just mostly decide that I don't want to do it. So my oldest is 12. She's learned how to make the foods that she and her sister like. And my husband and I will make something for ourselves, and then Emily will make something for her and her sister. And or we order in. Friday nights when we play D&D, we always order pizza. Occasionally my husband will get wings instead of pizza. But we always order pizza. The kids have pizza, and I can make that pizza last for 2 suppers. Because we each get a small. The kids get a small cheese to share. I get a small, usually like a chicken bacon ranch or something along those lines. And that's a couple of meals for us. Not my husband, but for the girls and I it is. And that's kind of the pattern we've fallen into. Like, I really don't want to. There was a lot less of that than I thought there was. That's this L that there's a lot of. Okay. Basically, I don't want to think about food. I just want there to be food. You ever disliked something and then changed your mind? Justin Timberlake. We've gone over the fact that I've been in choirs and stuff since I was a little kid. I was just a little bit too old for the Backstreet Boys / NSYNC war. My boy band of choice was New Kids on the Block. Again, I'm dating myself. But I was a little bit too old for the Backstreet Boys stuff. So my first real experience with Justin Timberlake as a solo artist was Sexy Back. And the droning, I'm bringing sexy back. I hated it. I hated it with every fiber of my being. I hated that song. And I still hate that song. But that one and Cry Me a River, there was something about Cry Me a River that rubbed me off the wrong way too. So the 1-2 punch of that and Cry Me a River made me absolutely despise Justin Timberlake. I have since come around. His newer stuff I do like, but it's like Justin Timberlake's a hack. I do not like his stuff, was the refrain. Let's do these L's. Still looks like more like a Tetris block to me, but that's one that he's a talented performer. He's a half-decent actor when he's given good stuff to work with. I don't have a problem with Justin Timberlake anymore. I still hate Sexy Back, and I think I always will. Anything like that where you're out of tune on purpose, it's nails and chalkboard. Cannot do it. Okay. 34. What's your favorite board game? That's an excellent question. Probably the favorite one that we play regularly would be Warhammer Quest. And I'm going to be hearing a lot of It's similar to Baby's First Dungeons and Dragons. It's a very simplified board game kind of version of a role-playing game. My kids have played it, and they love it. It's a little on the brutal side. It is very random number generated. So there's a lot of, oops, you died. Oh well. So while you're playing a character, you can't get too attached because rocks fall, everybody dies. Happens relatively often. But, you know, it's fun. A friend of ours is really big into board games. He has a rather extensive collection. And on nights where we can't manage to drum up, well, on nights pre-COVID, where we couldn't manage to drum up enough people to play our existing role-playing games, he would bring down a cool board game or two and we would play those, and those are fun. So yeah, Warhammer Quest is probably one of my favorites, probably because it's role-playing game light. Everyone kind of takes over the dungeon mastering roles. I don't know if it's really sold anymore. My husband's had it since before we met, and we've been together 23 years, so I don't think it's really sold anymore. But it is fun. We do enjoy it. We'd rather play Pathfinder, if there's enough of us to do it. But, you know, we're all grown-ups now with lives and spouses and children and responsibilities, so it is not always possible to get all of us available on a Friday night. And we do sometimes play a little more often than that, but like I said, spouses, children, lives, responsibilities, it doesn't lend itself to having vast quantities of free time with which to play pretend with your friends. Okay. How do I take my coffee? I take my coffee and I give it to somebody else. I do not like coffee. And I recognize that that makes me a weirdo. And I'm fine with that. I prefer my caffeine cold and fizzy. I have a bit of a Diet Coke problem. But on the order of vices, I think Diet Coke doesn't really rank. So what is your most prized possession and why? My most prized possession, something that I would run into a burning building for. Something. Wedding rings are up there. Like, I don't even know if I can get mine off, to be honest. Although I've lost a lot of weight lately, so maybe I can. I like having things, but I'm not really that attached to a lot of my things. I do like my weighted blanket, and if the house were to burn down tomorrow, I would get a new one. But it's a weighted blanket. I can get another one. There are items of more sentimental value. Like, I've got a ceramic witch that my grandmother made that I keep above my computer. My computer would be a big one. Again, it's just a computer. I could replace it, but I have a lot of data on there that I really need to come up with a better backup system for. A lot of the stuff that I really need is on a cloud service, either on Google or on OneDrive. So if my computer decided to self-destruct tomorrow, I would probably be okay for the sentimental stuff. But like, my photos are all backed up with Google Photos. A good number of the videos and stuff that I've taken off of my camera are either on private YouTube files or are in Google Photo. So while I would go squirrely without having a desktop or a really robust laptop, I think probably the biggest things would be the sentimental things. But most of that is backed up to the cloud. I would be really upset about losing all of the craft stuff that I've done because I poured hours and hours and hours into some of the craft stuff. Like the tombstones and stuff that I built are a labor of love, and if something happened to them, I would be really upset. In fact, I go back and forth as to what I'm going to do about potential theft or vandalism of them every year when I go to put them out. And my answer is, it's an item. It would suck if I lost it. I would hope that someone would have the wherewithal to think before they were to destroy it. But sometimes kids are assholes. And that's just the way it goes. Or not even just kids. Sometimes people are assholes. My kids left their sidewalk jacket on our sidewalk, like on the median between the sidewalk and the road, because they had been drawing on the sidewalk. And at some point during the night, I know it wasn't my kids because it wasn't like that after they went to bed, but at some point during the night, someone came along, saw, hey, sidewalk chalk, and drew a whole bunch of penises all over my sidewalk. It's like, really? Really? I wasn't mad, it was just sort of like one of those eye roll moments. Because, I mean, we were all young and stupid at some point, so we've all done stuff like that. Not necessarily that specifically, but really? We all have things that we're not proud of. Is there any product you couldn't live without? My sleeping meds. Probably Diet Coke. It's an addiction. I get headaches when I go without it. It's definitely an addiction. It's a problem. We actually have a soda stream, so it's the diet soda version for that I drink most often. Although, if I didn't bring a bottle of it with me to work, I will buy myself a Coke Zero. I will buy myself a Coke Zero at work for my breaks to keep me moving. I should drink water, but I drink Diet Coke way more than I drink water. I'm thirsty. See, soda stream. Always got these going. 38. Do I sleep with a top sheet? Why or why not? I don't. And that goes back to me being a kid with bladder issues. I wet the bed up until my tween years. I stopped doing it shortly before I started menstruating. Thank God, that would have been a huge mess. But by then, I was old enough and required to do my own laundry. So I would wet the bed, I would wake up, I would strip the bed and put the stuff in the wash. and have to remake the bed, and the top sheet was just a step too far. And I've never really liked them. I just find they get in the way. It does mean I have to wash my blankets more often, but I don't like them. They get twisted around and stuff, and I don't like them. I got used to doing without it, and I just don't like it anymore. The kids use our top sheets to make forts. We don't use top sheet. We did somewhat back in the day. Because I can't sleep without at least something on me. And there were many times where we lived in places that we did not have central air. And like I said, I sleep next to a furnace. So sometimes I would try and sleep with just a top sheet. And I just noticed I missed one of these L's, and I just put the L's away. I hate when I do that. But no, since we moved into this house with the central air, no, the top sheets are for the kids to play with. We don't use them as bedding. If you get any exotic animal as a pet, what would it be? Are ferrets exotic? They're not standard pets. Generally, standard pets, fish, dog, cat. Wouldn't mind having a ferret. No snakes. Definitely no spiders. There's something about spiders that creep me out. Yes, I know. I'm supposed to be the Halloween person. But I like Halloween because I like to be scared. That doesn't mean that I'm going to go and say, yeah, I'm going to own a tarantula so that it'll scare the shit out of me on a regular basis. No. Snakes. I like fuzzy pets. I'm going to go with a ferret for that one. Question 40. Would you rather spend a day at the beach or poolside? I'll take either. I'm leaning towards the beach though. Beach has lots of options. You can go in the water, you can play out there, and there's sandcastles to be built and all the other stuff. So I'm leaning towards the beach. I'll go with the beach. Ooh, we're moving into career. This could be interesting. Okay. What is your favorite thing about your current job? I actually do like my job. My favorite thing about my current job is kind of the independence. I'm part of the bakery, but I'm not really beholden to any particular part of the bakery. Like, there isn't somebody waiting on me whose job requires me to have something done in a particular farm. I'm not the packager who needs the baker to have done stuff. I'm not the person on the floor who needs the person in the freezer to have done all their stocking of the bins correctly. I am kind of a free radical. And I like that. It allows me, to a point, to set my own hours. It allows me to work at my own pace. It allows me to make my own judgments about how much stock of anything that we should have. It allows me to make my own judgments about what needs to go where. There are some guidelines and interpretations, but I am pretty much free to do what I want within reason. And I like that. I do. I like it a lot. Let's go with wise. That one, and that one. Some of these are in more than one pot. I'm going to link my setup video that I made up here, which actually, as of right now, is not up. I'm in the middle of loading the one that comes before it. but it will be by the time this one goes live, so. And I get to play with icing all day. I get to frost cakes all day. It's fun. Actually, not all day. I do the dishes for the department because I'm the one who produces most of the dishes, with the exceptions of the baking trays. That sort of gets done as needed, but the rest of the dishes, the stuff that needs to be hand washed, because the baking trays go in the pan washer, there's only a few bench scrapers and the like that the rest of the department goes through, so I end up doing all of the dishes for the department because I have bowls and spatulas and tips and all of that stuff that needs doing. And it's just easier if I do it because it doesn't make sense to run entire commercial sinks of hand washing fluid and sanitizer to do 4 or 5 items when I'm going to be washing all of my stuff later. So I just do it all at once. What annoys me most? Getting interrupted. When I'm the only person in the bakery, which does happen when people go on breaks and the like, and people interrupt me because I'm the only one there. And there's really not anything I can do about that, but I get into a workflow and it sucks when your workflow gets interrupted, and then sometimes if it's been interrupted for a while, it's hard to get back into workflow. It can also be a problem if I'm making things for backups for the freezer. We do make some cakes ahead of time and stick them in the freezer so that they can literally just be taken out of the freezer and put a label on and put on the counter. And before anyone goes, why would you do that? Just about every cake you've ever eaten, unless you made it yourself or watched it getting made, has been frozen at one point or another. Cakes freeze very, very well. There is no shame in freezing a cake, even fully iced. They freeze extremely well. Freezing and thawing and freezing too many times can mess with the texture though. So if I'm making a cake to then turn around and put it right back in the freezer, and the cakes are shipped to us frozen, I can't let it thaw all the way out. So I have to kind of do it pretty quickly. So if somebody comes over and asks me a question about a department that's not even mine, and I end up having to leave my table to go help them find something in the back of Beyond, which happens, and I come back and my cake's completely thawed, I now have to find room for it in the counter or stick it in the fridge because I can't put it back in the freezer. It is completely thawed. And that gets a little annoying. And customers who don't listen or seem to think that everybody's out to get them. Like this whole distribution center thing, like I said, our department has looked absolutely desolate. I made a comment to my boss that it looked like we'd been robbed. And ours isn't the only one. All of the fresh departments have been. So, meat's low, dairy's low, deli's low. Everybody's feeling the pinch on this. It's not just us. So when I say I'm sorry, we're out, and people get offended like we're not doing our job, it's like, guys, we can order it from now until the cows come home, but until they can fulfill the order, we're not going to have any. This is not a we problem. I've done my job. I have determined what I need and made that order. It is not my fault that it did not come in. What's a career highlight that you're most proud of? Well, if you know anything about my career, I've only been doing this cake decorating thing as a career since 2018. So it's been a career in my 41-year-old life for a grand total of 2 years. Yay! So don't have a lot of highlights. But I got to make a cake for a 100th birthday. And the lady who was in was telling me all about it. It was her grandmother who was having this 100th birthday, and she was talking about how her grandfather used to bring her all of these lovely, lovely roses in just a variety of colors. So for this cake alone, I made, I don't know how many different colors, and I made striped versions to get those variegated flower petals. I did some bag striping and got some, you know how sometimes on rose petals you'll have like the edge will be one color, but the interior of the petal will be a different color. I did a couple of different ones that were like that, and I just covered this cake in roses. Just covered it in roses, and they were so happy with it. Unfortunately, another highlight of it is some funeral cakes I had to make. And unfortunately, I've had a few very big funerals in my family in the last 4 years or so. And that's one of the few times where I will take a panicking last minute order is funeral. Because even if you have a family member in hospice, it's still a shock when they die. Even if you have a family member in hospice and you've had all the talks about this stuff, it still feels kind of, oh my God, this just happened, now we have to do all this work. So I've had to do a few funerals, including a funeral of my sister's nephew, who wasn't even a year old. And I make these cross of roses. So I make a cross shape out of all these roses and put all the greenery in. I like it much better when I'm able to do those for things like christenings. But I had to do one for little Miles for his funeral. And that was a very hard day at work, but it was also very therapeutic because it gave me something to do to help the family. And as I said, my sister married into a family where we knew that we all knew each other growing up. So even though this is not my in-laws, I know this child's mother. And I've known this child's mother her whole life. So it was devastating that he passed. And I think that's all I'm going to say on that. Okay. Do you think you'll stay with your current company for a while? Why or why not? that one's loaded. That one's very loaded. Walmart is not a company that has a great track record with how well they treat their employees. I'm not sure if this is something I've actually stated outright, but I am a cake decorator working at a Walmart. So it's kind of bargain basement for cake decorating. So I am actively looking for a job in a bakery where I can do more than just play with wood dicing. I like my job. I like my boss. I like my boss's boss. The head of our fresh department, he's great. But there are lots of things about Walmart as a company and how the company is run that give me pause and make me want to keep my options open. And also, my boss is the same age as my mother. They actually were children together. And she's probably going to retire in the not too distant future. And I miss the two wives that are right there. And who knows who I will end up with after that. So I would like to stay in cake decorating because I am enjoying myself. I like the job. I wish it paid more. I wish I got more hours. I wish I had more better quality of stuff to work with. But people like the cakes that I make. I'm having fun making them, so it's all right. But because of Walmart's issues with quality of life for their employees, I am definitely keeping my options open. And there's really nowhere for me to move. So it's not like I don't really want to be the bakery manager. I definitely do not want to be an assistant manager. So pretty much the only place I can move to is becoming full-time. And Walmart doesn't pay great. It's better than minimum wage, but doesn't pay great. So where I am, there's no movement up or down or really even laterally. I'm kind of stuck where I am doing what I'm doing. So yeah, I don't see me being with Walmart forever. Maybe that'll change. Maybe I'll get a great raise and full-time hours and it'll just continue there. But yeah, I don't see me being with Walmart forever. What type of role would you like to graduate to after this one? I would like to move into a more dedicated bakery, like out of a grocery store. I would like to move into a role where I can really start to pick up more skills. Like I do know how to work with fondant and gum paste, but it was a Wilton course years ago. I would love to get the opportunity to work with that on the daily. 13 is C. C is what I'm working on. Basically, I'd like to expand on what I'm doing right now. Right now I'm making birthday cakes, and that's great. Birthday and anniversary cakes, Canada cakes, and that's great. But I would like to up my game. I would like to learn more about fondant gum paste and mirror glaze, and I do know how to do stacked tiered cakes, but I don't feel confident enough in my skills to put myself out there to do things like wedding cakes. And that's really the holy grail of the cake world, is getting into weddings. So that's something I would like to be able to move into. But in order to do that, I'm going to have to leave Walmart and I'm going to have to get into a real bakery. And unfortunately, I don't drive and I live in a small town. So my options are rather limited unless I get my driver's license. which is something now that I am medicated for all of my anxiety issues, I have been looking into get it. So we'll see what happens. Okay. Are you more of a work to live or a live to work type of person? Work to live. I have lots of hobbies. If I won the lottery tomorrow, I would probably quit my job. If I won the lottery tomorrow, I would probably quit my job. And stay home and make awesome things. All the craft supplies I could buy with millions of dollars. I feel far more fulfilled being home. There's so much more things I can do at home. I would need some outlets, like I would probably want to take some courses, and I would want to join some clubs, and just see a whole bunch of us middle-aged ladies sitting around a table diamond painting together and shooting the breeze. That would be kind of cool. But yeah, I can totally see all this going on. All of it working. Does your job make you feel happy and fulfilled? Why or why not? Yes and no. I like what I do. I like the fact that I come in every day and I check out the counter and I check out my orders and I do my orders and I clean up and I tease my coworkers and they tease me back. I like who I work with. But there's always this looming falseness working at Walmart. The constant feeling that I'm a cog in a machine. And the feeling that I am ultimately extremely replaceable. Admittedly, I am in one of the more specialized roles, so finding somebody who already has the experience to just pick up and do what I'm doing is a little harder than hiring a cashier. But I'm hardly the only woman in town who knows her way around a spatula and piping bag. Like, for a few months, and I know that this is going to be hard for people who work at Walmart in the US to hear, but we for a few months got a $2 raise due to the COVID thing. And like everybody I know agreed that that should be permanent. Walmart can afford to pay an extra $2 an hour to employ us. They can. They definitely can. And instead, as of the end of May, we no longer have that. And we got these lovely little medals calling us essential workers. Like, yeah, we call us essential because sacrificial is a little too on the nose. And the credit card pitches, which I used to have to pitch a credit card for another job that I worked, and never again. Do not envy cashiers having to do that. I hated it when I had to do it. So I have no problems with my fellow employees. I have no problems with the job that I am doing, but the company occasionally gives me the skeevies. How would your 10-year-old self react to what you do? My 10-year-old self would think I am the most awesome person ever, judging by how my 8 and 12-year-olds react to the fact that I make cakes for a living. They love it. They think I am the best person ever. They brag to their friends about the fact that their mom makes cakes at Walmart. Makes the cakes at Walmart. They think that's the coolest thing ever. I think my 20-year-old self would be horrified. But 10-year-old self would think I am the neatest person on the planet. What do you remember about your first job? I'm going to go with the first job that paid me with an actual paycheck. My first job that paid me with an actual paycheck, rather than just money under the table, was a data entry job I did for my dad. One summer, didn't have anything to do, and my dad needed some data migrated over from one database to another. So I sat in an office and typed, and it was the most boring thing ever. I was well paid for it. Dad compensated me for the absolutely hideously boring work. But if I'd known the first thing about scripting, I totally would have scripted that job back then. It was mind-numbingly boring. Okay. Did I start immediately after finishing school? Why or why not? Yes and no and maybe, and like I started working to try and make my own money when I was like 11. We lived in these townhouses, like row houses, that in that area were used largely as starter homes. I think some were geared to income, but they tended to be starter homes. So there was a lot of very young families with very young children living there, and we moved in there when I was 10 and moved away when I was 14. So in between then, I am naturally motherly. That's just the way that I am. At that point in my life, I'd always been the oldest person in the room who wasn't an adult. So I naturally would take charge and make sure that, like, the bigger kids were meeting very littler kids and stuff like that. And inevitably, I got offered babysitting jobs. Even before really I think I was old enough to do it. I started babysitting at like 11. I remember my mother, when I was 13, I did that while I was living there. We moved when I was 14. I did some babysitting, but not a lot after that. And then I got really heavily involved in high school. And then a bunch of stuff happened and I moved out with Brian. And by then I was 18. And Ontario has this weird situation that goes on with minimum wage. There's three minimum wages. 3. which I've always thought was stupid. But there's 3 minimum wages. Minimum wage the first. Minimum wage the first is the standard minimum wage. It's what anyone over 18 makes in a role that is not an alcohol server. Right now, that minimum wage in Ontario is $14 an hour. At the time when I was searching for a job because I'd moved out with my boyfriend, I promised him I would get a job. That wage was $14.65. That wage was $6.85. Come on. Put more wax in my 3-placer. But while I had babysitting experience, I didn't have, and a little bit of data entry experience with my dad, I didn't have any experience handling money really, other than like bingo. As in, I worked bingos for fundraising, not I went and played bingo. And I was still in high school, so nobody wanted to hire me because there was also a student minimum wage, which was really a minimum wage for those who were not 18, which was, I think, 40 cents less. I think it's more like 80 cents less or something like that now. It's not $14, it's under it. So I couldn't get a job because I was 18 and had I was 18 and in high school and had no more experience than the 16-year-olds who were in high school that they could pay 40 cents less an hour to. So I could not get a job, even though I was living on my own and trying to make ends meet. Nobody would hire me. It was crap is what it was, and it sucked. I don't like it. There's also an alcohol server's minimum wage, which I think right now is 12 something. Which, again, I think is stupid because it means that the alcohol server is relying on tips to make up the difference, and I think tipping is stupid. I do it, don't get me wrong, but I think it's stupid. What are we talking about? So, yeah, I started trying to work as much as I could. And then I had to leave school. I still had 3 credits to get. My intention had been to sign up at the local high school in my new town, either all in the morning or all in the afternoon, so that I could work at the McDonald's, which is where I ended up working, on the hours that I wasn't in school, and we couldn't make it work. I couldn't even get them all the courses I needed in one semester. And I think it was 3 credits short. So I said, fine, I'll do correspondence courses, and that didn't work out either. So I'm working and trying to figure out how I'm going to get my last few high school credits so that I can go to college. And then we end up back in our hometown. And I very nearly get fired from Tim Hortons because I am constantly calling in sick because my migraines have gone nuts. And I found for some reason I have to limit my caffeine intake on days that I worked at Tim Hortons, which sells a lot of coffee. And I don't understand why, but that was the only way I could keep my migraines from going insane. So I managed to talk myself out of getting fired, but they did demote me down to part-time, and it was right around when the semester was changing. So since I was going to be part-time anyway, I decided to go back to school and pick up the last 3 credits. And I worked while I was in school, part-time. And then full-time because they put on a hiring freeze because they were going to go into renovations. So I was working like 40 hours a week. And then I finished that semester of school, got my diploma, and kept working. And a year and a half, by the time I had started back into high school, it was too late to apply to college for the year. It was second semester already. So the next year, I applied and got in. And then when I finished college, I couldn't find a job after college. Not even like a fast food job or something just to pay bills and stuff when we ended up moving back in with my parents. And yeah, lots of fun. Oh, I'm gonna be interrupted here. My children were apparently still up watching TV with Daddy. So I've pretty much always worked, with the exception of a couple of years in high school, which kind of screwed me. Even when I was in college, I worked a couple of jobs. Okay. What was the worst job I ever had? Wendy's. Wendy's, full stop. Hey, you.
Hi. I brought down her napkin so she's too tired. Yeah, she wants to on her tablet.
Oh, she has you wrapped right around that little finger of hers. Okay. Off you go, get ready for bed.
Like,
It's
just
like bedtime for me.
bedtime for you?
It's almost 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so unaware of my surroundings and just banged into the wall.
And you just told the world. Congratulations. Worst job I ever had was Wendy's. Full stop. The owner of the Wendy's here in town is a rather odious man. He never treated me poorly. Problem is, I'm not blind, and he treated his other employees poorly. He didn't treat me poorly because I was my father's daughter. My father owned a business in town, and this man had political leanings. He had political aspirations, and he didn't want to piss my father off. But he had so many illegal or immoral things going on with his various businesses that it boggles the mind how he managed to get away with it. And I know how he managed to get away with it. He managed to get away with it because he had mostly undereducated people who were afraid of losing their jobs. So he had things like, he had policies that you couldn't call out sick. You had to find somebody to cover your shift. Even though, according to the health department, you can't have workers who are communicably ill while working with food. That's not a thing. That's not on. And he had policies where if your cash drawer was short, it was taken out of your paycheck, which is also illegal, at least it is here. You have to have a certain kind of cash drawer insurance. The only circumstance by which you could deduct cash drawer shorts out of somebody's paycheck is if they were the only ones who had any access to it from the time it was counted on and verified through to the time that it was counted off. And that was not the way it was worked. That's not the way it worked at Wendy's. Any employee, any manager could pull my till out and stick it in a drawer and start working with it when I was on a break or in the bathroom or doing another job, like cleaning up the dining room. So, but they banked on people not knowing their rights, not knowing the law, and it worked. It worked for a long time. And they didn't like me because I found that stuff out while I was working there, and I wouldn't put up with it. And they made my life hell while I worked there. And I left to go to college. And some of the managers are still there. Not that, college did much for me, because I didn't go to college to become a cake decorator. I went to college to become a computer technician. And now I make YouTube videos about diamond painting and decorate cakes at Walmart. So clearly some derailment has happened there. But yes, Wendy's, for sheer audacity, is probably the worst job I've ever had. And I am rapidly falling asleep. So I am going to cover up this piece. Did quite a bit there. And we're going to call that a night. I hope you found this informative. If you'd like to answer any of the questions that are in this, I'm going to link the source where I found all these questions. I'd love to see response videos. I'd love to see comments to any of these things that you could answer for yourself. Maybe you have had worse experiences than I have, and you can tell me all about that, or how some of the things that I said that work certain ways here maybe work very differently where you are. That's always interesting to find out. Like I mentioned the minimum wage thing because I know in some U.S. states that professions that where tipping is common, like waitressing, some states can get away with paying their employees only like $2 an hour, like $2.13 an hour or something like that. And they're supposed to be topped up to the minimum wage if they're not making that. But I would hazard that probably some still aren't. Personally, I think tipping is a corrupt practice that needs to go away. But it's so ingrained in our culture now that it would be difficult to get rid of. It's less so here in Canada. It is more in the US. But it's still very ingrained in the culture because our cultures are so closely intertwined. Anyway, I'm yawning. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to bid you adieu. And thank you for joining me. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Share it with your friends. Subscribe if you haven't already. Ring the bell if you want to be notified anytime that I post new content, because it is still kind of random. I am starting to work out a schedule. I haven't got it completely sorted yet. Probably because my work schedule is going to be all over the place for the next couple of months. So we'll have to see what we see when we get there. Anyway, Be safe, everybody. Bye.